All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's session. We are super excited to have each of you here tonight. This is probably the session that I'm personally most excited about, having studied finance and pursued finance myself early on. I'm super passionate about providing access to other females to break into the space, and just really excited about our panelists and what they're going to share this evening. For many of you, this might be your third session today. So if it is, thank you for being here. We will try to keep the energy high, make sure to keep you excited, just because we know you've been sitting in your chair for a long time. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Michaela will drop in the link right now into the chat to help you sign up for Leland. The number one question we get is, how do you access the recording after these events? And so we just want to make sure you've signed up so you can access all of our recordings. For Finance Week specifically, we will be sending out the recordings and free resources at this weekend and early next week. So make sure you signed up. Michaela just dropped it. We'll also be dropping it in our Slack, and we'll also, I'll go ahead and drop the Slack link right now. We will be engaging with our audience using the finance channel. Super important to be in there. That way we can chat with you, communicate, and just make sure to keep you in the loop for all of our future initiatives. With that, let's go ahead and get started. So as mentioned, this is our third session today of Finance Week. We've had a lot of fun, a lot of folks. I do know a lot of people said that this specific session they're going to be watching recording just due to hour of the event and other festivities and things going on. So it is a smaller audience here now. We had about 215 people on our first session, 130 on our next, and then obviously each of you here today. But I want to encourage you as often as you can to attend live. Although the recordings will be available, we are doing a lot of live giveaways. In our first session today, we gave away $100 in free coaching. Today, I'm going to be giving away money for every attendee. So again, if you're watching, I apologize, and I get it. There are, time zones and all of that. But if you can attend as many sessions as you can live, we just would love to have you here and engaging with our audience members and hyping them up as they speak and share their expertise. Now with that, Monday today has been very much like kind of panels about broader finance roles, hearing from panelists. And then the next couple of days are very workshop heavy. As you can see here, tomorrow's all IB focus, Wednesday's all PEVC focus, and then Thursday's kind of our miscellaneous finance workshop. So if you haven't already, Michaela's going to go ahead and drop in the chat the link, she just did actually, to sign up for every individual session. It's going to be super important to do so. If you signed up for just this one, you only got the calendar hold in Zoom for this specific session. So when you have a moment, make sure to go sign up. The links are there. We'll have a ton of free value all week long. So you're going to want to make sure to sign up for the remaining 10 sessions that may be relevant to you and whatever you're hoping to achieve. Another high level thing on Finance Week. This is our first ever and the only time we will be offering this series of sessions this year. So super important to join in. We're covering a lot of different topics, obviously across different roles and industries within finance, but also, and most importantly, we're really excited to be able to provide you with so much free advice and tactical support. You'll have access to over 30 really, really talented finance professionals, coaches, instructors throughout the week, which I think is just so super valuable no matter where you're at in the process. We'll also be having tons of giveaways, as I mentioned, and then at the end of this week, we'll be sending out a ton of free resources related to several different finance paths. And then obviously, I mentioned this, but we want to stay in touch with you. We want to be able to engage with you through the week, so we've been using our Slack channel. I dropped the link and Michaela will go ahead and do that again. So if you haven't had the moment to already, make sure to join into the Slack and use the finance channel to ask your questions. If any thoughts come up throughout this week, definitely feel free to drop them in there. We want you to feel comfortable. We have a lot of folks who are probably in similar shoes as each of you, going through recruiting processes, I'm kind of trying to decide what they want to do. So definitely find your people in the community and stay in touch with both our coaches and our Leland team in there as well. All right, let's get started with our introductions. As mentioned, I'm Erica. I run Experience here. I'm happy to be moderating today's panel as someone who's very, very obsessed with helping women break into competitive career paths and just find their light, because I think it's so important. But the real stars of the show are our incredible panelists, and I want you to hear from each of them right now to introduce themselves before we actually talk to them and hear their answers throughout the evening. So Angela, why don't you go first? Ayushi, you can follow, and then Naila, bring us home with your introduction.
Thanks, Erica. Super excited to be here, and nice to meet everyone on today. I'm Angela. I'm currently actually operating in fintech. Finance and fintech, I feel like go hand in hand. But previously started my career in management consulting, actually, and then went into investing in venture capital. Worked at a couple different firms, but was at Floodgate for the longest, so can really speak to what seed stage investing is like. And especially, I think there's a lot of finance recruiting that is smaller funds that are not, there are funds that have very clear recruiting processes, that have recruiters in-house, that have very set dates and tracks and processes. And then there are many firms out there that are just doing, kind of one hire a year, maybe less, something like that. And so happy to speak to more of kind of that one-off finance consulting and what those processes look like.
Great, I'll go next. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Ayushi, and I'm currently a student at Harvard Business School. Previously, I was a pre-seed and seed investor at Bain Capital Ventures. I've been angel investing ever since I graduated from Princeton, and I actually started a venture fund there when I was a student. So if you're interested in what it's like to work at a multi-stage fund, what it's like to work at the pre-seed seed stage, or if you have a technical background, such as myself, and you're curious, what is it like to pivot to finance? Those might be some of the reasons sort of we should get in touch, or sort of the things that I will be discussing or sort of sharing my insight on today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Naila. I am a current undergraduate student at the University of Miami. I'm a junior right now. And unlike these wonderful other ladies, I am just starting off my career. So most of my experience includes internships that I've done in the past few summers. I've interned at Sixth Street, an alternative asset management fund, and was doing accounting work for them. And then this past summer interned at VMG, which is a consumer and retail private equity firm. And this upcoming summer we'll be doing investment banking at Bank of America. So happy to touch on any of those experiences, as well as what recruiting has been like in the past few years, as well as anything else to kind of help the undergraduate crowd.
Awesome. Incredible bunch of folks. As you can tell, we have amazing panelists here, very qualified in their fields, and really excited for the advice they're going to share this evening. Let's now hear from each of you. Michaela's going to go ahead and drop in the finance chat. What is your dream city to live and work in? We get a lot of people here who want to break into some sort of finance role, and obviously that can be done in many different cities. So go ahead in the Slack chat, drop it, and then fun fact, we will give every person who responds in the finance thread to this prompt $25 in free coaching, which can go a long way in terms of getting your resume edited or doing a mock interview or simply talking to a professional to get networking help for whatever career move you're trying to make. I'll wait for a few of those to come through just so we can get to know our audience members a little bit. I love it. Cool. New York City, Texas, Northeastern. This is great. Lots of folks wanting to go to great big cities. Cool. We'll keep them coming. We'll watch those throughout the night. In the interest of time, would love to dive in and do a quick Leland overview. If this is your third session of the night, I hope it doesn't sound too repetitive. The main thing I want to drive home today is that Leland is here to help you reach your goals. So if that is breaking into VC, landing a job in investment banking, if you're interested in maybe even something on a different side of the spectrum, like med school, law school, dental school, we can help you. And we're dedicated through all of our services to being the one-stop shop to help you reach whatever outcome it is that you're trying to achieve. So through one-on-one coaching, which each of our panelists today, hopefully you'll be able to set up time with and chat with them, group classes, and then content. We're really trying to give you all the resources, knowledge, people, support you need to break into a competitive career path or graduate program. And the most exciting thing to say is that we've helped thousands of people get there, and we want to help you too. I just said this on the last session, so hopefully not repetitive, because it really is the most sincere thing I can say this evening, is that every single person here today is capable of accomplishing something incredible. I think a lot of folks come on Leland and may feel like an underdog in their space, or feel like they have no chance to land such a competitive role. And they've proven us wrong time and time again, that that is simply a mentality versus actually what's possible. Every single person on this slide and the hundreds of other slides we could make around the results we're seeing are folks who were recently in your shoes, who accessed an incredible coach, tapped into resources and knowledge and expertise, and then landed something great. So we're hoping each of you can do that as well through the power of our coaches and every other resource and opportunity we're working hard as a company to provide you. And I just want to say, our community is filled with incredible people. I put a lot of different folks who have engaged with Leland, both coaches, team members, users, customers who have been successful, who are just such shining examples of this incredible community. And we're honored to be on this journey with each of you. That's what I want to say here. Specifically, we always say things like, we want to help provide access to people who don't currently have it. And so just know we're in your corner, we're on your team, and hope to be hand in hand with you while you reach these big goals. Now with that, let's dive into the content of this evening. One thing we get a lot of questions about are folks who come on, specifically diversity candidates, who say, I want to learn more about what opportunities are available for me related to breaking into competitive spaces. And so we put a list here. Obviously you can find this all online. It's nothing too, hard to find, but we want to demystify what this process actually looks like. And so we've listed out a lot of them just to build awareness and show you, if you are someone who's interested in, finance, careers, investment banking, private equity, a lot of these funds and banks do programs. You'll see them all here. Blackstone, really, really notable firms. Naila specifically has been involved in several of these programs. And I would love to hear, Naila, from your perspective, like, how did you find out about the different diversity programs? How did you get involved with them? Have you cast like a wide net, or was it being more selective? Did they reach out to you? Would love for you to share with audience members who may be curious about these different programs, what that looks like tactically.
Definitely. So first, in terms of finding out about the diversity programs, I think attending events like these where people are talking and giving you advice on programs for women is a great first step to take, because as you'll see here, we have a lot of the diversity programs listed out for you. I also encourage, if you have other people who are going through the same process as you, whether it's investment banking, consulting, any other verticals within finance, having like group chats, communicating with them on a regular basis, creating spreadsheets, and just keeping each other updated throughout the process is another great way to make sure you're staying up to date with as many applications as you can. And then the final thing is, there are a lot of Slack communities online that will keep each other updated on when these diversity programs are opening, or when applications for different programs in general are opening. So staying up to date on those, joining as many of those communities as you can, is also extremely helpful. And then in terms of, once you have decided that you want to apply for these programs, the process of choosing which ones to apply for me, I was very new to the finance field when I first decided to apply for these, and I took the approach of applying for ones that seemed even remotely interesting to me, and then going through and choosing the ones that I wanted to proceed to the final rounds of interviews with. I think one of the sad truths about this industry is that it is very competitive, and it is hard to get a job in this industry, in finance and the more specific areas within it. So if you have the opportunity to apply for multiple things, I recommend doing so. And then once you get selected for said opportunities, then it's important to consider other things that are going to play a big role in your career, such as the prestige of the firm, the mentorship opportunities, the importance that they give to women, that they give to other diversity candidates, and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the process that I took when going about these programs.
I love it. Thanks so much. And great plug. We also have a few members of our Slack community who have done a great job of plugging them in, as well as other opportunities in the finance space and internships and program openings. So again, another plug as to why you should join is simply to stay in the know and have a community of people who are going to keep you accountable and informed of any specific opportunities that may be relevant to you and helpful in the process. Again, we're just trying to help with access and making sure you have the knowledge you need to move forward and be successful. All right, let's dive in now. Thank you, Naila, for that help. I know a lot of folks came into this call with that question. So let's dive in to our panel. Lots of exciting questions. Many of these were actually submitted from audience members. Hopefully we have enough time to cover them all. We only have about a little under 30 minutes, but the goal is that we do get through them, and would love to start off with a question to kick things off. We can go on this one. Why don't we go Ayushi, Angela, and then Naila can bring us home. Specifically, as you made the decision to go down a finance career path, what were some of your considerations you thought through?
Sure, happy to start. So I guess for some context, I studied computer science in undergrad. And so I think part of that reasoning was, oh, like I would be wasting my technical degree if I didn't do something technical. Or I worked really hard through all those P-sets. Like, of course, I want to keep my technical chops up to speed, especially if I might want to start a company. So those were kind of the two reasons why I actually had a VC offer at Bessemer when I was a senior in college to go do venture there. And I actually turned it down to go work for an AI startup. And so those were the kind of like two big reasons for why I was like, I really enjoy finance. You know, I did a lot of venture things in college, gave me a lot of joy, but I wasn't quite ready at that point in my life. And so I think the first thing I'll say is, this question, as you made the decision, I think we're constantly making decisions at every inflection point. And just because you say no once doesn't mean that a career or a path is going to be forever out of your reach. But was I intentional about making sure that I continued to kind of keep up my finance chops and parallel plan? Absolutely, right? Like I was angel investing the second I graduated college while I was in that technical role. And so therefore, when the next inflection point happened, which was I loved my first job, and I had the opportunity when Bain Capital slid into my LinkedIn DMs, I thought, okay, last time I wanted to make the decision to stay in tech because I wanted to stay technical, because I want to start a company. Now, kind of for the same reasons, I want to go do finance and I want to go do venture in this institutional way because I want to learn from people who like have promised to be like an apprentice or like a mentor to me. So one, like I want to learn from great people who have been really committed to my success, but two, timing really mattered. I knew that I was going to be able to go to HBS after, and that I would be able to sort of have that founder path still as an option. And I was really excited to go kind of take a risk and go do this finance thing, even if it didn't necessarily right out of college make a lot of sense because I wanted to keep my technical options open. So those are kind of the two big decision points where I've both chosen to not do finance immediately and then to do finance.
I love it. Angela, take it away.
I'll actually echo a lot of what Ayushi said, where I think, you know, just because you go in to finance or choose not to go into finance doesn't mean you're necessarily opening or closing that door for forever. And that's kind of the beauty of it. And so my first internship in college actually was in the markets room of the US Treasury, which essentially was looking at financial markets for the White House. And it really piqued my interest in investing. It really piqued my interest in understanding how markets can tell a story of what's happening in the world. And I was like, wow, finance is amazing. This is so cool. I think I maybe want to go into this. But I wasn't sure. And so I went into, instead of, you know, I was like, okay, well, I think maybe I want to operate. And so instead of going into investment banking, I decided to go into consulting, which I felt like offered a lot of the same exit opportunities as investment banking, but didn't necessarily pigeonhole me into finance. So I think there's a lot of pros and cons and a lot of things to consider. I think some people from the get-go absolutely know finance is their calling. Erica studied finance in undergrad, and I think, you know, if you know, you know, and you can absolutely go into it and stay in it for forever. But also if you don't, you know, I'm currently operating at a fintech startup, and I'll probably end up back in finance at some point in my career. And that's the beauty of having that technical background, and exactly what Ayushi said, as long as your technicals are staying sharp, if you're angel investing, if you're you know, on the private equity or investment banking side, and once you kind of learn the technical side of things, as long as you're staying sharp on those skills, I think you can really move interchangeably between finance and operating. And it is a really incredible skill set to have on either side of the fence.
Great. Thank you. Naila, bring us home.
So, kind of like Angela mentioned towards the end, for me, when I came into college, I kind of knew that I'd want to study business and that was an interesting field to me. I first started off doing accounting, had an accounting internship, and then quickly pivoted to finance, which, while might sound kind of similar, was actually pretty different. But the reasons why I kind of decided to stay in finance was because I, like Ayushida, always dreamed of kind of owning my own company. I've had some ideas for my own company, and finance has always kind of been the base for starting your own company, and having that technical skill set was something that I had been told was extremely important for some of my future goals, which was kind of the main decision why I ended up wanting to do finance. And then it was the people I met along the way, the mentorship community, the potential to be with some incredibly bright minds that made me want to stay in the finance industry. So the decision was pretty easy for me, but I'm definitely glad I made it.
Awesome. Thanks. I think that gives us a great foundation to now dive into the more tactical questions, but great to hear everyone's background. Obviously, an incredibly impressive bunch. I hope each person in this audience is as starstruck as I am just listening to kind of their thought processes and staying up to date. I think there's a lot each of us can glean, regardless of if we want to be an investor or in a true finance role, from the answers shared by our panelists. All right. Let's think about this question. For those, okay, so obviously you've gone through the process yourself. I'd love to hear from you, Naila, first on this one. What advice do you have for someone looking to land their first job internship in finance, and how can they make their application stand out? I know you spoke earlier to, you know, 6th Street and several other internships you did prior to even landing the Bank of America one, and would love for you to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's just about starting the process, and what advice you would give them to make sure that they can land whatever it is that they're hoping to get their foot in the door.
Definitely. I think two of the biggest things that kind of helped me and that I would recommend for other people is, first, keeping your mind open to all opportunities, and second, being vulnerable with who you're reaching out to and kind of being open to stretching your networking, I would say, as far as you can. So for the first, when I came into college, University of Miami is very big in finance. Being in Miami, there's a lot of finance happening right now. Maybe not the traditional finance like investment banking, consulting, but a lot of very unique opportunities. So the first thing for me was not necessarily pigeonholing myself into being like, this is the one job that I want and this is what I'm going to try to get, but rather saying, this sounds interesting to me, so do all of these other things. Let me try to see what I can explore, what opportunity I can get first. And then if I don't like that, thankfully, you have 2 more summers to pursue an internship and 2 more summers to pursue different interests. The second part of that, I would say, is reaching out to as many people as you can. A lot of the finance industry is based off of networking and mentorship. And not only do we realize that, but the people who came before us realize that as well. So it's surprising how many people reach out and how many people are able to answer your emails, your LinkedIn messages, etc., and how many people are willing to help you throughout your process. So I would advise, definitely don't be scared. Reach out to someone who you're excited to learn from, who you just find commonalities with, things like that. And I think all of that will kind of aid as you look for your first job and will help as you land your first job.
Awesome. Ayushi, let's pass it over to you if there's anything you want to add to those kind of thinking about breaking in, and what advice you would give them.
Sure. So I'll start with the second question. How do you make your application stand out? There are a ton of people who are interested in VC, and I understand that the bar to angel invest is quite high. Like, I chose to live at home for 2 years, and save on rent money, which is the only reason why I could actually make an angel investment. But I think there's middle ground. And so to stand out, because they're like everyone, their mom wants to be in venture, is I think if you can't angel invest, I would look into doing a scout program where you can invest on behalf of a fund. Again, this is before like having like a full-time investor role, like while you're in school is one good way for folk who are capital constrained, or to write thought pieces about like, these are companies that I think are great that are under the radar, and to write investment memos, because you want to show that you can source great companies and that you have good investment judgment. And the world is your oyster, right? Like what's really cool is with a lot of tech companies these days, like you can LinkedIn DM them. You don't have to be a partner at a fund to get great deal flow. So I think it's unlike other sorts of finance where, from my understanding, like IB or private equity, like you really kind of have to be a GP or a partner to even get access. That is not the case for VC. So use that to your advantage and show the world and show your application that you can both source and that you have good investment judgment. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think a lot of people in the audience are probably like, great, this is super helpful, because it's so much more, it sounds like, than just landing the analyst or associate position at a VC fund, and instead showing them like, okay, if this is a space you're excited about, there are several other ways in which you can break in and stay in the know and be involved.
And I think I'll just say last
go ahead.
I think like getting your friends, getting your mentors to give you feedback on what you've written is also great. Like I don't think you have to feel alone in doing this either.
I love it. Yeah, I think, and especially like amongst this community, like it's awesome that there are so many people who want to be supportive and being able to lean on each other. So thank you for that plug. And I think that segues honestly perfect to this question, right? Maybe people don't have the friends or communities from undergrad per se, or from, growing up that they can lean on. What would you say, Angela, to those who are thinking of like building a strong network and mentorship in the space, especially if prior connections don't exist? What would you say to them as they think about their career and breaking into these competitive roles?
Yeah, I'll completely echo what Naila said as a mechanism for breaking into the industry. I think in general, just even, reaching out to anyone who you have any sort of mutual connection with. So they attended the same undergrad as you, you have mutual connections. There's so many ways, and people are so, I think that's the most shocking thing about most jobs in finance is how willing people are to answer these calls. I know, not completely the same, but similar when I was recruiting into consulting. I don't think a single person turned me down for a first phone call or coffee chat, just to understand kind of what their jobs looked like. And when I was a first year associate in consulting, they actually, you have dedicated time set aside for recruiting and for those coffee chats to help mentor the next class and help recruit the next class. And so I think the firms do a really good job knowing that people are recruiting and helping folks find connections. So I would say definitely don't be nervous to just reach out to someone, knowing that they actually have time booked out in their days, just to help kind of the next generation, the next class recruit. And then also I would say actually, like, in general, I think women are always really excited to chat with other women who want to move into finance. Fun fact, I don't know if I'm allowed to tell this on this group, but Erica and I actually went to the same undergrad, and we met because she cold DM'd me and was like, hey, can we chat about your job in consulting? This was in like 2015, and we've stayed friends ever since. And so I think it is, you would be surprised by how many people are willing to take that first call, and then how many of them also result in meaningful relationships that end up lasting years and years.
I love it. Thanks for that plug, and definitely something you can share on this call. I think that's a really great example of like, yeah, I mean, I messaged Angela and we ended up getting dinner, I think in San Francisco. And to this day, she's someone I consider a very close connection and mentor in every career move I've made since then. And obviously now she's a coach on Leland. So it's really come full circle. And I think it just shows like things don't have to be, just for that one role that might be open on LinkedIn that you're excited about. getting or landing. It's so much more. It's about like building those long-term relationships and investing in each other throughout every milestone. So I appreciate that anecdote, Angela, and really grateful for your support every step of the way.
And I'll add, actually, even like to connect the dots and bring this full circle to what Ayushi was saying about angel investing. I actually angel invested in Leland with Erica and John, who founded the company. So you guys would be surprised. These connections are really, really meaningful, and they go both ways. Of, you know, when Erica was in college, she was like, "Oh, talk to me about your job," and then I invested in her company. And you know, these things are really. I remember when I was an undergrad, I think the word networking at first always felt a little bit like, I don't know, scary or just like intense. And I think you guys would be surprised by how many people genuinely want to help advance individuals' careers.
I love it. And giant plus one. Ayushi, anything you'd add, as you've obviously probably been getting a lot of messages from undergrads and folks who want to follow your journey, and as you've thought about mentors in your life, like curating this community of mentorship and connections to help each other?
So one, I think that whenever someone gets a lot of inbound, one thing that you could do is invite them to be part of like a panel, so they feel like, rather than having like a one-on-one conversation, which of course is better for mentorship, they feel like, okay, like I can maybe help 10 people with the same hour. So again, if someone doesn't really have the bandwidth to do a lot of one-on-ones, but you still want to start developing that relationship, I would reach out for like a larger trek or sort of like panel like this. And then second, I think so much of mentorship is people wanting to like learn from each other. And so particularly in venture, I think sending people like an actual like memo that you want to get thoughts on can be very actionable, because I get a lot of people who are like, I want to learn about venture. And then I'm like, okay, like you should go read the guidebook I wrote about, or right, because like I just like personally don't have time to talk to everyone for an hour about the FAQ that I have on my website. But if you have a specific question about how to look at a certain company, or a specific question just in general that they can actually respond to, I think you're going to get a much higher response rate.
I love it. That's great and very tactical. Thanks so much for sharing. I don't know if this is like particularly relevant to everyone here, but it is a question we get often, and something people actually submitted to this a lot of around, you know, specific to you know, finance kind of being a male dominant industry, and wanting to kind of think through like, oh, were there comments made, or were there, yeah, what barriers of entry as a female? And I don't think we need to necessarily take that lens, even though it's appropriate to address. And more so just kind of broadly speaking, I'll go with you, Naila, first. Were there any obstacles you faced when trying to break into finance? Could be anything across the board, and how did you overcome them? Thinking about giving advice to kind of the next generation.
Definitely. I think honestly, the biggest obstacle that I faced when trying to break into finance was myself and my doubt in my own abilities. I think this is true for anyone, whether you're no matter what type of minority you are, if you're a woman, your race, gender, socioeconomic background, school, when you come from a minority group and you're unlike the people that have traditionally broken into the industry. So in finance, as women, when we see a lot of men breaking into the industry and not many women that have come before us, you can have doubt and like, am I good enough for this? How am I going to be able to break into it? Do I have the proper resources? But especially now, I think the amount of women breaking into finance has really been expanding. It's been growing so much, and we really are no less than anyone else who has tried and succeeded in breaking into the finance industry. And the biggest obstacle I faced was overcoming that and truly believing that I am no less. I have the same technical background. I have the same behavioral skills as all the other people did. And the best way I found to overcome that was to go into every single one of my interviews and feel confident that I had done everything that I could to prepare, that any technical question that could be thrown at me, I could answer just as good as someone who might have come from a different background as me, and just have no doubt in my abilities helped me to overcome any other concerns that I had before.
I love that. We need to definitely make that a TikTok clip, because everyone needs to hear that. Amen. +1 to that. Anything, Angela or Ayushi, you want to add as you think about unique obstacles, or anything to kind of complement what Naila shared?
I think big plus one. I think the other thing that I think surprised me, and I recruited for both consulting and investment banking and opted to go the consulting route, but I was really intimidated as an econ major. I was really intimidated by technical interviews. And you can apply this. This is obviously very applicable for iBanking or PE. It's also true for venture capital. It's a very different type of technical, but you have to be able to talk to current funding rounds and what's going on in the environment, different investment themes. And I think just getting up to speed on those things without actually working in the industry can be very, very challenging. But then once you do, what I found, the most powerful thing that I found was actually doing internships, because once you do it for like a day or a week, you're like, oh, actually, this isn't hard. I can come up with an investment theme. But the first time you're asked to do it in an interview, it can be really stressful. Or the first time you're asked to explain what a DCF is, it's really hard. And then you build out one and you're like, oh, I can totally explain that. So I think I would encourage everyone, as much as you can, start applying the technicals before you just like read, this is how I build an LBO model. Like actually understanding what an LBO is and why you would, use it to purchase a company and why that's beneficial just from a conceptual point of view. Then jump into like the technicals, it's going to go a lot farther. And obviously there are a million resources, Leland being an amazing one to help you get up to speed on your technicals. But I do think that is can be an intimidating thing. And exactly what Naila said, like for me, it was much more intimidating than it actually was once I got into it. So I would encourage everyone just jump into it head first and really push on the technical side and getting up to speed there.
Thanks for sharing that. I think this kind of like going off what Naila shared, and maybe even to some degree what Angela shared of just being like intimidated by something. And maybe a lot of folks, including myself, I feel like early on in my career, it was really natural to see something that felt really challenging and kind of back down and just say, I don't want to like learn the case method for consulting interviews, so maybe I shouldn't do it, or I don't want to go through the investment banking prep, so I'll write that off. And I think that is not the solution at all. We have to believe in ourselves. And so going kind of off what you shared, Naila, and kind of thinking about how you were going to navigate and build confidence and be prepared to walk in the room, I think this is a perfect follow-up question. Ayushi, I want to pass it over to you. Thinking about maybe times where you've probably been a minority in a room, either in finance or other career paths you've chosen, how have you owned your space and navigated building that confidence and speaking in a way that allow others to like not even look at you as someone different in that space?
Sure, this is definitely a tricky one because maybe I've almost overly complicated how I've dealt with this. First of all, I think I've been in very lucky circumstances where like my employers have been very like supportive of me kind of being a woman in the space. But that being said, like I did work with a speaking coach because I got a lot of feedback that I just sound very young. And so I think it's pretty hard to get because I'm guessing there's probably a lot of like gender to that. But quite frankly, I work with a communication coach. So I have fewer fillers. I say like less often. I think that a lot of people will push back and say, yeah, you should be your authentic self. And I think in some ways, like I dress very Gen Z, I dress in very bright colors, and that's definitely how I express myself. But I just found particularly in the finance world, I wanted to speak, I think, with more clarity, and I wanted to, quite frankly, like sound like I was older. And so I did work with this speaking coach. Again, this is pretty controversial. Just because I took this path does not mean that everyone here needs to take this path. If you are a young woman, you probably will sound like a young woman. And there's obviously a lot of gender there. But I found that it was preventing people from taking me seriously. And especially in venture, if you're on a path to write checks, you need people to take you seriously. You need the founders to take you seriously because you never want them glossing over your title, being like, oh, you're only an associate, like introduce me to the partner. And similarly, like in every conversation you have, right, you want people to think that you have gravitas and that you know what you're talking about. And literally that sometimes comes to your delivery and how you talk. So, or how you speak, I should say. So probably not the response anyone here was expecting or wanting, but that's just like my lived experience and sort of like my truth.
I love it. And I love it. I think it's honest, candid, and also like very helpful for people to see, okay, what are the things that are holding me back from feeling confident, and what can I do? What steps and resources are there to help me level up and feel that confidence? And as Angela plugged, like, that's a perfect opportunity where a coach comes involved, or like working with a Leland coach on mock interviews, or kind of just more the executive coaching, whatever that may be for your unique situation. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's exactly what a lot of folks in the audience might need to hear. Angela, anything you want to add to this?
I think that's an amazing example, honestly. I think it is, the toughest thing about this is it's so individual as to why, but I have seen it throughout my career of just time and time again of different women's voices not being heard in a room for whatever reason. And so I don't have a ton to add after that example, but I will say, I think just being very cognizant. I think, the piece that Ayushi didn't describe was she recognized that that was something that was holding her back, or just that she wanted to work on. And I think being cognizant and being aware that, okay, my voice is going to come across differently in this room because I am a minority in whatever way, shape, or form that is. I think like trying your hardest to be self-aware and understand exactly what might be holding you back, so that you can either decide to work on it, or exactly to Ayushi's point, it's like, I've gotten feedback I need to dress differently at work, and I've chosen not to take it. I think being very intentional around what feedback you take and what feedback you don't take is the most way to be the most authentic version of yourself. And that just requires a lot of self-awareness and intentionality, which can be tough. So I think that's the thing I'd encourage everyone to think about.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, we are almost at time. I'm thinking that we should go on this and double down if there's any other skills. We only have 2 minutes left, which I'm so glad we dove in deeper to each of our questions versus trying to knock them all out, because I think there was so much sincerity shared. But let's go around the room. Naila, I know we've kind of touched on this. So if there's anything you want to kind of think is like final tip, final advice you want to give to the women on these calls, would love to hear. And then let's go, Ayushi and Angela, you can wrap us up with your ending word of advice.
Definitely. I think this is something that has kind of been echoed throughout this call. And the biggest skill that I've found helped me is confidence, and then backing up that confidence. I think being confident in your role, regardless of your background that you have come from, is one of the most important things, because other people can kind of sense nervousness. They can sense if you don't believe in yourself. So having the confidence that you've done everything that you can to prepare, everything you can to work hard to get to the role you're in right now, is one of the most important things. And then, like I said, backing up that confidence with actually putting in the work, actually doing what needs to be done to get that role and to perform well, are two of the most important skills and attributes that I've seen in women that I look up to, and that I hope other people can see in myself, and I'm constantly developing in myself. So definitely one of the biggest things that I recommend.
I love it. Thanks for sharing. Ayushi, all you.
Take more shots on goal, probably, I would say. You have to be okay with taking a bunch of L's, probably not getting a lot of jobs that you want. But I think sort of the biggest skill really is, quite frankly, being optimistic and like keep trying. A ton of people don't get their dream jobs because they just like give up too early. And obviously, like there's a lot that we as women are having to overcome the system, and I'm not trying to trivialize that. But there's one piece of advice I would say, having that key skill of just like, you know what, I took an L with this interview, or I didn't get the job I want, but I'm going to keep trying, I think is incredibly important for like just successful people who I've seen out in the world.
Amazing. Angela, final words.
Oh, I love that one of, I think turning rejection into something that motivates you can be so powerful. The one I'll add to this is it's a bit of a weird one, but I would say being very aware of current events in the field that you are interviewing for or interested in. Just a random example, but I was at a networking event last week and I met an individual who just raised a huge venture fund focused on AI, and just even being able to say like, oh, you know, I don't know if anyone saw this, but there was a product that came out called Humane AI. That's like a little AI pin. And even just like talking about, oh my gosh, like, you know, what do you think about the pin? How do you think that company's going to do? You know, it instantly builds credibility for you in that space. And so being really up to date on whatever is happening in that space, whether it's by subscribing to newsletters, talking to friends who are in the space, understanding what the kind of big things are, I think can go a really long way for helping you stand out as someone who knows what you're talking about.
Amazing. Okay, these are all incredible. And I feel like I learned so much. Everything shared today, I'm like typing notes on my phone so I can adapt and use in my own life. So thank you so much. I'm so sad that we couldn't finish all of our panel submitted questions, but just know, panelists, we are so grateful for your time and your energy, your advice. I feel like it was a very good combination of just being so real and authentic and raw, but also like so tactical, and that there's so many things folks can leave with tonight and change and adapt to their own journey. So huge round of applause to each of you. Please go book time with both Angela and Ayushi. They're live on the site for coaching. That's what they do on Leland. Naila will get you on Leland here now shortly so we can share your profile in the near future. But again, huge thank you. Again, thanks for joining and our finance week. We have tons of resources and coaches available. If you haven't already, make sure to sign up, and really looking forward to seeing you all on our other Finance Week events this week happening, and hope to be part of your journey moving forward. Thanks again, everyone. And thanks, panelists, for your time. Take care.